Good evening and welcome to Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. I'm Chris Hansen, and tonight we are going to take a look at the strange, disturbing, bizarre case of Bryant Moreland, EDP445. I'm just going to be really honest with you right off the top here. A lot of people in general on social media and here at YouTube have been asking me to look into EDP445 for weeks and weeks now. I'm sure you know the story, or at least the backstory a little bit. EDP445 is a very prominent YouTuber, 2 million subscribers, but he's controversial, and I really don't get why he's so popular. I mean, I sort of do, I guess, but he has done and said some very sexually inappropriate things with underage girls. He promotes himself as being a Philadelphia Eagles fan. He's a bit of a foodie, but more and more disturbing allegations started to surface. And I resisted, honestly, wading into this because I just thought he was a gross guy making money in a gross way. And he ultimately was outed by two vigilante predator catching groups, predator poachers, with the help of CC Unit. And I know of these fellas. Predator poachers, Alex is controversial in his own right. I do not advocate these vigilante predator poachers in any way. I tend to stay away from them. I don't collaborate with them. They make me very nervous on a number of different levels, and you'll hear about that in just a little bit here. Alex also got jammed up, and rightfully so, for making some very disturbing racial remarks. All of this fits into the big narrative here because EDP445, Bryant Moreland, happens to be a person of color. So with that volatile cauldron of controversy, our good friend and creative collaborator, Wes Moast, and I have been talking about this for several weeks now, and Wes diligently has put together a video piece you'll see in a minute talking about all of this. And he joins me now to set this up and to set up the story and why this is important and why it's important that we went after Bryant Moreland, EDP445. Wes, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris.
So how did you first hear of EDP445? And what was your initial impression of the kind of show that he put on YouTube?
Well, to be honest, my first time hearing about him was when the confrontation happened with Predator Poachers and CC Unit. Before that, I'd never heard of him. I'm an NFL fan and I'm on YouTube, but even with 2 million subscribers, that's just a fraction of the actual people using YouTube. But when I found his content, when researching for this piece, I can't understand the appeal. But then watching the confrontation, Alex said something pretty telling. He said, "I used to watch you in high school." And when you look at the analytics, a lot of his fans were younger, were that kind of humor, that kind of brashness and like potty mouth language, because there's really no other way to put it.
It's foul. It's not creative. It's not intelligent in any way. There is absolutely no intellectual integrity. But the decision you and I made was ultimately to dig into this because it's disturbing. The allegations are just really, really, really bothersome. And there was a controversy surrounding him and rumors swirling around EDP445 about inappropriate contact with underage girls. And it was the Predator Poachers group, posing as a 13-year-old girl, that got in contact with EDP445. And there was a conversation and a confrontation in Bakersfield, California. And Wes, that kind of got your attention. So as you'll see in a minute, we talked to Alex of Predator Poachers and to Ghost of CC Unit, who helped out here. But what's the most troublesome thing about this, Wes, in your mind, in terms of what YouTube allows?
Well, I think the most troubling part is that these allegations, these aren't new. There's a YouTuber named Cold Raven who I don't think should be left out, who, back in October of 2020 made content pointing out that a third of the EDP had over 600,000 Instagram followers, and he only followed about 150 people, but a third of them were females under the age of 16. And he pointed these things out. Cold Raven himself, posed as a underage female and had also screenshots of conversations that EDP had with him posing as this underage teenager. So these allegations have been out there. And while YouTube was quick to act when the actual confrontation happened, I don't think it needed to get that far, because if that would have been a real 13-year-old child there, then some actual harm would have happened when it could have been, when it was already uncovered almost a year ago by people on YouTube itself. So that's the most troubling part for me, is how far does it actually have to get before someone will take action?
That is my concern as well. And Wes, let's take a look at the piece that you put together.
Have a seat with Chris Hansen.
Okay, that clip you just watched is from a YouTube video posted by CC Unit. The whole video lasts nearly 55 minutes, which shows two YouTubers set up an attempt to catch a man they say tried to meet up with a 13-year-old in Bakersfield.
What's poppin'? It's your Puerto Rican Prince, co-Raven King of the Ravens, and right here I've been asked 8 specific questions about EDP445.
If you're watching this video, you know exactly who the f you are. Let's cut the bullshit, the games, the time for and fucking around. It's come to an end.
Are you really doing this? Yes. Okay, it's...
It's so funny. Like, come on, can you look a little bit less guilty? Just a little bit less guilty.
Watch me, nay-nay. Watch me where? Watch me, nay-nay. Now, Bob, hold on. The stinky leg, hold on.
This is former YouTuber Bryant Moreland, aka EDP445. At 30 years of age, he had amassed an impressive 2 million YouTube subscribers and over 600,000 followers on Instagram. Bryant started his channel on June 13th, 2010, and he would upload his first video the same day.
Lay it to my ass, bad luck when I get 12 all up in there.
While rapping was not his forte, he would find success 5 months later on November 16, 2010, when he dropped the first video about his beloved Philadelphia Eagles. Just like that, and at only 19 years old, a career was launched. This is 30-year-old Kyle Swanson.
What's up, guys?
He's a U.S. Army combat veteran and one of the founders of KTS Predator Hunters.
Got another one today. And it's an interesting one.
Kyle claims to have brought hundreds of offenders to justice, and while his YouTube presence isn't quite as large as EDP's, he has a loyal, fervent fan base eagerly awaiting each catch. Both of these men are 30. They both gained some level of fame on YouTube, but that is where the similarities end. Because while one has built a name for himself outing and shaming suspected child offenders, the other gained fame eating large portions of food, talking about football, and breaking overmatched Chipotle toilets.
My bad, y'all. I'm busting out a YouTube video, dog. And we better get the f out of here, dude. I just overflooded the toilet.
That is until April 2021, when Moreland would achieve a level of nationwide notoriety he never expected, when he was captured on video showing up at the home of who he thought was a 13-year-old girl.
On fist bump?
I don't fist bump people like you, man, to be honest.
So okay.
Allegedly to pursue a relationship that had blossomed on Instagram. Today, one of these men is going about business as usual, while the other is worried for his freedom, facing 2 Class 4 felonies as well as a Class C misdemeanor in connection with an online sting. One of these men was forced to hire a lawyer, pay a bond, and prepare for a court battle. And the other one, he just wanted dessert.
Well, I was actually coming out here to pick up a cupcake and then go back home.
In the booming world of online predator hunters, law enforcement is starting to take a stand against what they call vigilante justice. And the outcome of these 2 cases could send shockwaves throughout the communities they so passionately serve.
That's how much I love you. Okay, delete your archives and remember, Mrs. Kayla Marie Armstrong, I love you more than anything.
To Catch a Predator debuted on November 11th, 2004 and was a pop culture phenomenon.
Did you bring any condoms?
Yes, I did.
Casual viewers may not remember, but the first few episodes of To Catch a Predator didn't include police involvement.
Well, yell at me, why don't you?
And some viewers were unhappy that these confrontations didn't end with arrest.
See, we're doing a story on computer predators.
Oh no! Come on, guys.
You don't want to touch anybody.
The show didn't truly explode in popularity until various sheriff's departments began doing parallel investigations, and the offenders were marched away in handcuffs.
Sheriff's office!
Patterson steps back into the house, and an officer shoots him with a taser gun. Only one probe stays attached, so the taser is unable to shock him and drop him to the ground.
Almost 15 years after the last episode of To Catch a Predator aired, the show continues to gain new fans and inspire on YouTube and beyond.
Why'd you get into it?
Initially, I grew up watching you.
With the proliferation of cheap cameras, 4G networks, and video sharing sites, a new generation of predator hunters would soon rise.
She's 15, Roger. You can't do that. Roger! Shame on you, Roger! She's only 15 years old, Roger! Roger!
YouTube would allow these groups a platform to broadcast their catches to the public, sometimes live, to rabid spectators excited to follow along in a POV format. Accused predators have been named and outed live, often before the police are even aware of this person's existence. It's the Roman Colosseum for the digital age, and the crowds can be just as hungry for blood. While some groups have aided the police in bringing these offenders to justice, others have been charged with entrapment, kidnapping, and assault. For every Nito with Pop Squad, who's been publicly applauded for his role in aiding the police, there are those like Kyle Swanson, who I briefly discussed earlier. In one livestream catch from November 2020, Kyle posed as an Uber driver to pick up a man who allegedly believed he was on his way to meet a child. According to police record, Kyle allegedly refused to let the man out of his car before ultimately delivering him to the police station.
And I'm not going to tell them until we're at the police station, and you guys can listen into our conversation the whole way there. And I'm going to bust them as soon as we get in the police station. I'm going to let them know, hey, you know why we're here?
The viewers in the chat were enthralled throughout the trip as the passenger casually chatted with the driver, unaware he was being recorded and watched live. 7 months later, the passenger, who for all intents and purposes did appear to be on his way to meet a child, has never been charged with the crime, while Swanson himself is facing multiple charges and is now forced to contemplate dissolving KTS Predators and giving up the fight against online offenders. It happens more often than you think, and it's the main reason law enforcement has tried to dissuade these groups from operating. Despite a damning chat log, despite showing intent, and despite the best of intentions, a possible predator was allowed to walk free so he could potentially harm an actual child.
Justin, are we right? You know what you were doing was wrong. You were dating 2 12-year-old girls that you thought, and you sent pictures to them, and you were planning on taking the 12-year-old girl's virginity today. Were you not? Yes or no, Justin?
If that sounds familiar, It's because almost the exact same scenario would occur in April 2021 with the handling of the EDP sting.
You said you want to punish her, you sent graphic photos, you asked for graphic photos, and here you are, walking to the apartment.
But before we go there, let's travel back to the summer of 2020 when the first warning signs started to appear. In July 2020, whispers began to spread about allegations of inappropriate behavior between Bryant Moreland and teenage fans. In response, EDP released a video clearing up rumors that he had been voice chatting with underage minors.
They decided to screenshot the shit and fucking record it and all this extra fucking bullshit and fucking look at him being a pedophile.
His fan base thought nothing of it, accepting his explanation and chalking it all up to his dark humor.
Do you honestly think that I would sit back and throw away my life for some fucking punk ass that barely even has fucking hair on her motherfucking pussy? For a fucking bitch that probably can't even count up to 100, my the fuck out of here, man. Fuck that dude. Like, come on, for real? For real.
One of the first YouTubers to take the allegations seriously was Cold Raven.
Hey, yo, what's poppin'? It's your Puerto Rican prince, Cold Raven King of the motherfucking Raven, straight out of New York.
A brash, football-loving YouTuber who at the time had just a few thousand subscribers.
You don't even care if they're minors. I mean, we've seen the DMs. You confirm the ages in the DMs and still compliment calling them babes and beautiful and all that sexy and what is wrong with you?
In October 2020, Cold Raven released a video where he would accuse Moreland of messaging and following underage women on Instagram, posting what he said were screenshots of their interactions.
Now, if you go on his Instagram, you'll see that around 30% of the people that he is following are girls between the ages of 15, 16, and 17. And when all this pedophile dropped, we knew about one girl. And then a second girl came out. And then a third girl came out. And as of today, a fourth one has just dropped. Yep, there's now a fourth girl, which makes me ask the question, how many more are out there?
Cold Raven also pretended to be an underage girl himself and claimed Moreland sent him explicit messages as well. This was a risky move for Cold Raven and he knew it. He was making these allegations against a much larger channel. EDP fans wasted no time in harassing him and accusing him of embellishing a story for recognition, attention, and clout. Rather than reply to these renewed allegations, Moreland would release a video simply titled, "My Response to Cold Raven." In the video, Moreland eats chicken wings, stopping only to pick up and cock a gun, before continuing to eat.
These wings are bomb ass.
It was a threat. Cold Raven didn't let up, putting more and more pressure on Moreland, all the while doing his best to ignore the mob of EDP fans desperate to defend him.
EDP445 had just been caught texting a fifth, not one, not two, not three, not four, but five, a fifth underage girl right here. He called her cute in her comments.
Cold Raven wasn't alone. Fellow YouTuber Master at Work, who had his own following in the NFL commentary community, would also join in to expose Bryant. Master at Work and EDP had been personally feuding for years, at one point even planning to meet for a one-on-one confrontation. In the months after EDP was exposed, Master at Work became the go-to source for updates and exclusive EDP news. But in October 2020, he was just another voice yelling against the wind.
Instead of focusing on what my channel was made for, which is NFL football content, and making people laugh, now I'm stuck being a predator poacher online for one of the most hated people within the sports community.
Time went on, and the once gathering murmurs about EDP445 became dull whispers, and it looked like he would get the last laugh, until he met the decoy.
And before we get into the messages, there was sexual content involved, yes or no?
Right.
And you said
correct.
Okay, all right. And again, I have it right here. I know the answer, but I just need you to tell me the answer. How old is she?
13.
13, okay. Right. And before we get...
The conversation started on Instagram.
Oh, I literally just woke up and I'm taking a shit right now.
Using a fake account posing as a 13-year-old, the decoy messaged Moreland on his verified account in February of 2021. Before long, Bryant and the supposed-to-be 13-year-old would engage in a sexually charged conversation.
When you say specifically, I've always fantasized about someone younger with a big age gap. You did say that, correct? Yes or no?
Correct.
That you fantasize about someone younger.
Correct.
What is that fantasy? Because it's not just loneliness.
You know what it is, man.
We really don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
That included images too disturbing to share.
Yo, what up, motherfucker?
The chat log ended with the two agreeing to meet, leading to this now infamous confrontation.
So this is you texting all this, correct? This is your Instagram, yes or no?
Right.
Okay, all right.
Moreland admitted to talking to 6 underage females and fantasizing about minors.
Screenshots that you've always wanted to be with someone younger. Like you fantasize about being with someone younger,
right.
And you're scared of being a sting operation or cops.
Right.
Like
he would admit to a lot of things that day.
Now, as far as the whole fantasy goes, you know what I mean? Let's be real, okay? You know what I mean?
Like, that's the part where I'm not picking up on. I genuinely don't know what you mean. You've been exposed for this before.
Correct.
And you called them... So, you did admit you fantasize about 13-year-olds, yes or no?
Right.
Okay. Do you also fantasize about being submissive to 13-year-olds a little bit, yes or no?
Right.
Only to backtrack and refute them later.
My mom did not raise a fucking... Okay? She did not raise a creep or where... I know what the screenshots say, okay? I'm aware of that. I'm looking right at them, okay?
There was no police action taken that day or even in the weeks after. Instead, Moreland drove home, undoubtedly contemplating his future with the loss of his one source of income weighing heavy on his mind. His fans would be far less inclined to give him another pass, and Moreland knew it was just a matter of time until his confrontation was a topic of the day across YouTube.
EDP445. I've got no idea. Like, I didn't even know what this was.
So, YouTuber EDP445.
The rise and fall of EDP445.
He's been embroiled in some controversy, and this isn't the first time.
Get ready to back the prison bus up. Pick this dude up.
EDP would private the videos on his channel after the confrontation, and the video of the sting operation would reach almost 2 million views in a matter of days. Many of the people associated with Moreland denounced and cut ties with him. Alex Rosen too would come under fire, as troubling videos using racist and other disturbing language were unearthed from years earlier. The public conversation quickly changed from discussion about EDP to discussion about the character of the person involved in the capture. On April 27, 2021, both EDP and Alex Rosen would have their channels banned from YouTube. The Hunter and the Hunted both expelled from one of the world's most popular platforms with the push of a button at Google headquarters. This could have been the end of it. A double knockout blow where both combatants are down, even if Moreland was the clear loser. Only, it didn't stop there.
So, just want to let you guys know, man, EDP445.com is coming soon. Been about like a week, maybe 2 weeks from now. I'm gonna have a fucking website up and fucking popping and shit, you know.
As Moreland put it, leaving YouTube wasn't the end. This was just the beginning.
Letting us feel it and straight whipping our out and pissing all over you feel me?
On May 2nd, 2021, just 5 days after his channel had been terminated by YouTube, EDP triumphantly announced a comeback. This would be achieved in the form of a website he would presumably operate and control.
So with that being said, man, EDP445.com, it's coming soon. Website is gonna be crack-a-lacking.
A few days later, on May 6th, Moreland would double down on his denials about the decoy with a new video, this time going after Cold Raven.
That punk-ass motherfucker Cold Raven? Yeah, I see your little ass motherfucker over there on Cold Raven. You just go ahead and give it the up, my nigga. It's a fucking rap.
Master at Work.
You and that punk-ass motherfucking rat-faced, snagger-tooth-ass, bitch-ass, buster motherfucker Tyson. You know what I mean? You a snake-ass piece of shit, bum-ass punk motherfucking loser, and you ain't about shit.
Anyone who had a smaller channel than him.
Those little punk-ass, what? 5, 6,000, 7,000 subscribers and shit, that's your motherfucking lifeblood. You feel me? I could sit back and take a shit. I could take a fucking piss, my and piss out 5,000 subscribers. Give it the up, bro.
And of course, Ghost.
You in that punk ass motherfucking mask wearing dweeb dort short pipsqueak ass motherfucker, the CC unit. Motherfucker over here looking like a goddamn short ass fucking elf looking nun ass motherfucking shit with that big ass dashiki mask and shit on.
And Alex Rosen.
Chet Goldstein. Or should I call you Alex Rosen? Fuck these N-words and all that. Your credibility is bro.
Another expletive-laden video would follow days later. This time, Moreland threatened to file a restraining order against Master at work for what he claimed was harassment.
This has to stop. You left me no other choice. You're over here sending motherfuckers to my apartment complex, posting flyers and shit. You're over here on Reddit and Discord and all this extra you know what I mean? And I have decided to file a restraining order against your ass. That means you cannot talk about me. You cannot send motherfucking goons and shit. You feel me? To my apartment complex, posting flyers and shit, trying to get a hold of my immediate family, my close friends and shit.
EDP claimed armed intruders were knocking on his door, bothering his family, and said one visitor even dropped a cupcake at his home before rushing off. Too bad he didn't know. EDP claimed he didn't even like cupcakes.
I never was a huge cupcake eater, you know what I mean? I've always been a little bit too sweet for me.
People were losing interest as the EDP videos got more ridiculous and rambling, and the news cycle grew stale. Moreland would learn soon enough that for someone like him, the only thing worse than being infamous is being irrelevant. Cold Raven has moved on.
Apparently, I have the golden standard opinion when it comes on to this dude because I predicted literally everything that would happen. And I'm the one, who showed the information. I'm the one who unmasked him. And I was the one, who got this ball rolling. And here we are.
No longer wanting to discuss EDP, as it was never the kind of content he wanted to do. His passions lie elsewhere, and he has poured his time and talent into creating content on a new channel.
He said, I'm no longer be covering the unless something crazy, absolutely absurd happens.
Master at work, for his part, is also leaving the predator hunting to others and focusing once again on sports.
My message to anybody trying to use their YouTube fame to try to entice minors, don't do it, because the bigger you get, the more of a target you're going to paint on your back for people that's going to want to take you down.
He kept the public up to date with leaked text messages, shared receipts, and personal interviews. Like this one, with a Bakersfield community member posting flyers around the city to warn citizens about EDP.
He doesn't care, he's not going to get help. So you know what, EDP, this is my town. I'm going to let people know that you're here. And I got posters right here to let them know that there's a living right over there next to a freaking park and a high school. I'm going to start posting right now, all right here, so they can see your face to know that you're around here and not to come close to you. So let's start posting this stuff.
Master at Work's beef with EDP was largely personal, as it has drug on for almost a decade. But other than the occasional update, his work is complete.
Which is part of the reason I stopped covering the story, because I had a personal issue with EDP going on for the past 8 years, when we were supposed to meet up at an Eagles-Patriots game and he wanted to fight me.
If he had one thing to say to EDP now, what message would it be?
This is karma for the past decade of being a misogynistic, racist, clout chasing, egotistical predator.
The aftermath for the predator hunters has been a mixed bag of experiences. After initially being hailed as a hero, Alex Rosen lost a channel. His reputation was attacked, and his dreams of becoming a detective are possibly dashed forever because of racist, incendiary comments made years earlier. Contrast that with the earlier case of Kyle Swanson. In both scenarios, a suspected offender got away due to a lack of police intervention after the involvement of online activists. But perception matters. After posting a GoFundMe for help with his legal fees, Kyle was able to raise over $10,000 for his cause. Law enforcement may not want their help, but the public seems to disagree, showing overwhelming support in the forms of donation and kind words, urging Kyle to keep up the fight. That doesn't mean Rosen has lost all support, or that his fans have given up on him. Quite the contrary. They may not be holding protests to show their support like followers for Kyle Swanson did in Illinois, but the Predator Poachers Network, CC Unit, and Rosen himself are gaining more admiration and followers with each bust.
Are you really doing this?
There's somebody here to meet
You're here to meet a 13-year-old
who has solicited photos. There's somebody here.
Are you really doing this?
Yes. Okay, it's apartments.
I asked Alex which punishment he thought was worse, jail or being publicly exposed. In his words, it's the same. A wake-up call will either make you stop or it won't.
Are you serious?
I don't know what apartments.
What do you mean? Come on, man. We're trying to get you help, dude. Because you're not gonna get help.
And that's the major difference. Because they operate outside the constraints of the law, the goal for these activists and the goal for police are vastly different. For most predator hunting groups, public exposure is the goal, and while an arrest is always desirable, it's considered more of a bonus than it is a requirement of the catch. Law enforcement wants these groups to stop, citing them as a nuisance in the way of justice. But for hundreds of thousands of subscribers and viewers across the world, these groups are credited with keeping communities safe and assisting overtaxed police departments. Will there be a time soon when the police and predator catchers can work in tandem to identify and bring down suspected offenders? Perhaps. But until that day comes, the uneasy existence between the hunters and the hunted will continue to balance on the razor-sharp edge between trial by jury and trial by internet.
Let this be known, I am not a...
Ultimately, it's up for you to decide which is the stronger deterrent. EDP marches on. His videos are just as loud, just as explicit, and just as ridiculous as before.
The website will be launching later this week where we will whip our dicks out and piss down motherfuckers' throats, my you feel me?
5 weeks earlier.
I don't even know what to say, man.
Yeah, dude, shame on you.
Shame on me, man. I'm speechless, bro. Yeah. I'm speechless, dude.
Hey, but behind the scenes, some within his fractured circle are growing concerned. Moreland has allegedly shared various pictures of high-powered weapons and displayed what some have said are illegal firearm magazines. That shared concern for his safety, as well as the safety of others, got these pictures into the hands of Master at Work.
This is a 100-round 7.62x51 SCAR magazine. Oh my fucking God. You want to play rough? Okay.
And it's pictures like this that remind us how dangerous these confrontations can be. This is just one in a number of telling images of just how lucky Ghost and Rosen are that Moreland didn't bring a weapon that day, and instead came armed only with weak excuses.
You're coming out here to pick up a cupcake?
People are at their most dangerous when they feel they have nothing left to lose. And on that April day, Moreland lost everything he spent 11 years building.
I just want this EDP situation to be over with. I want him to be arrested and charged, and so I could wash my hands of the situation once and for all.
EDP445 was living the dream. He was doing it on his own, and he got there by grinding, and now it's been ground away to nothing. His website will most likely fail, as they usually do. Support will be minimal, Sponsors won't go near him, and whether he's monetized by paid membership or affiliate programs, he will find just how hard people are willing to work to avoid supporting an alleged predator. And maybe that's the true takeaway here. All of these conversations, all of these questions, all of these scenarios are just noise over the most important part. Bryant Moreland was identified and exposed by 2 predator hunting groups and later deplatformed as YouTube took quick action along with Facebook, Vimeo, and others. Moreland had a chance to explain his side. He was invited to sit down with Chris Hansen and explain the innocence he has proclaimed since he left the scene of the sting. He contemplated it twice, finally deciding he was only willing to do the interview if he was paid $17,000. Quite a princely sum to declare he did nothing wrong. The writing is on the wall, but for EDP445, who prefers to keep his eyes closed, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new.
This ain't the end. This is just the goddamn beginning, motherfucker. You feel me?
That same Bryant Moreland, who once hustled his way to a massive online following, will go down in history as yet another YouTube cautionary tale of someone who seemingly had it all and lost it when they couldn't manage their demons.
You tried to take down good old EDP445, my, but guess what, my, we still in the flesh. The movement will continue. You have failed, my nigga.
Allegations swirling around EDP445 have been, well, prevalent for some time. But it was the work of predator poachers, Alex there and Ghost at CC Unit, who teamed up on this investigation, 2 vigilante groups, that exposed EDP445 this last time, leading to a chain of events where EDP445 is no longer on YouTube. And we'll get into this in a minute, but neither is Alex of Predator Poachers. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Alex, Ghost.
Hello, how are
Alex, let's start with you. You have an organization called Predator Poachers. It's a vigilante group that goes after child predators. How big is Predator Poachers?
Well, not as big now as it was a month ago. We got taken down, but still pretty sizable. I can proudly say that we're an international group, including in Toronto, and that's about it for international. But we are all across the country. We have Southeast Texas, which is 2 hours to the east of me. We have a West Texas chapter now, so that's 3 in Texas. And we also have in Massachusetts and, you know, across the country, Michigan too, where you are right now, or your friend is. So we're like pretty much everywhere. And I'm proud to say we've caught over 300 child predators with countless arrests too. So, you know, I'm proud to say that this was done by Predator Poachers for sure.
How many of the 300 or so people exposed in your investigations have actually been prosecuted, and how many have been convicted?
There's been a few that have been sentenced already, and there's a lot of pending right now. For example, in Maryland, I got to go to court in October, but a lot have been arrested and a lot are awaiting trial. So a lot are in the process right now. And I know in Ohio, I don't have a number, but PP Ohio has quite a few convicted. I don't know the numbers for the other groups, but I know that it's over 10 that are either going to be convicted or sentenced or awaiting trial and all of that. And I know there's countless arrests that are like, you know, just
pending
in the jail.
So 10 convictions, you think, out of 300 or so actual predators exposed?
Yeah, that's ballpark, but more are coming for sure.
And what protocols, Alex, do you have in place to make sure that this is done fairly with integrity and you don't have an entrapment situation? Obviously, you can't have entrapment as a legal
of course,
defense here because you're not law enforcement. We all know that.
Right.
But in terms of fairness and the ability for law enforcement to prosecute, what protocols do you have in place for that?
So we always make sure to state our age quickly, as in the first or second message. or have it in the profile. Like, for example, with EDP on Instagram, in the profile, on Instagram, it's not an age-restricted app, so we can put that we're 13 in the profile. So we always have the age showing in their face as quick as possible. And if it's something like Grindr, we make sure to hide the age, so they can't say, I messaged a 23-year-old, I messaged this. They don't know who they're messaging. All it looks like is they're messaging an underage kid. And within, like I said, the first or second message, we always state the age. So we give them that fork in the road before they can even eat. You know what I mean? So
and what's the threshold for setting up a meeting?
The threshold for setting up a meeting is they have to want to do something in person first. So if they say, oh, I want to meet you here and do this, well, that's easy. And then we just give them the spot. So, or if they say like, hey, I want to hug and kiss you and do this, well, obviously you can't hug and kiss over the phone. So we're like, oh, when do you want to do that? And then they say when. And then from there we can say, oh, well, I live in these apartments. So we always make sure they say it first. Like if somebody's a predator, you don't have to make them into a predator. That's what we always say. If somebody's a predator, they will be a predator. So we don't really have to do too much to make them a predator. So.
And
yeah.
Why did you start doing this, Alex?
I've always wanted to be a police officer. And at 19 years old, I couldn't just go be a police officer. So actually, I've seen your videos before, but I really started watching your videos and Anxiety War, Just in Pain. And I was like, well, damn, this looks very interesting. And, it's another way to like help the community in some way. So it's a win-win here. And, it was a very interesting experience to say the least. And then when we started to do it more, we're like, holy shit, this is too easy. It's a problem. Like it shouldn't be this easy that people are just so hell-bent on meeting an underage kid. Like with the first night that I did it, I posed as a 15-year-old on Grindr, and this guy that worked in the medical field in Houston already wants to meet for sex. I'm like, this is probably a fluke. But, like I said, it didn't take long for us to understand that there's just so many of these people. And ever since then, we've just, it's been our passion. We've been, doing it.
So where do you typically meet the alleged predators? In a parking lot, in an apartment, in a hotel?
Oh, man. I wouldn't say there's a typical place at this point. We go across the country doing this now. I want to say we have it arrested in like 9 states now. But, I'd say the most common place is we give them an apartment to meet at, and they come in, and we always tell them, like, actually, I'm not going to say what we always tell them, but, we give them an apartment to meet at, and they go meet at the apartment.
And when you reveal yourselves, what do you say, what do you do, and have you had any situations where there was violence, where somebody got hurt, where there was danger?
The only time that somebody has swung at us, luckily, was a very small dude that makes Ghost look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like he was that small, where he tried to hit at the cameraman, but he just scratched him, and it was more like hilarious than freaking danger. But that was the only time, luckily. And the thing is, how we approach them, we want to get the jump on them. So the key for me, what I've noticed in these past few months, it's all about eye contact. Like if you are direct, we're all organisms, we're all animals. We're like the smartest species on Earth, but we're still animals when it comes down to it. And if you show that you're stronger, and if you show that you're like, you're firm, they're typically gonna like fold pretty quickly. So what I've been doing is I go up to them and say, hey, I was the one talking to you the whole time. I have everything right here. It's in your best interest to have a talk with us. And from there it goes on, and it typically goes well.
What happens after the confrontation? They just walk away?
No. When we're out of town, we always call the cops. We've tried in Houston, but Houston's obviously a very big city. And, with Houston, not as much luck with cops as in small towns. But in small towns, for example, out of town, we always report to the cops. That's a must for us. When we were in Oregon this past week, we've had all 3 people that we caught in Oregon are all arrested. And one of them was a sex offender, and he's like screwed. So the other 2, I don't know what's going to happen, but they were all arrested. So we'll see what happens with all that.
And how do the law enforcement departments react when you call and say, hey, it's Alex from Predator Poachers, and I'm here, and I've got my team, and we think we've got a guy who's trying to meet a underage boy or girl?
It all depends. I'd say most of the time when we explain what's going on, they're typically cool with it. And the people that are like, you know, they don't take it seriously at first. Those people, they end up seeing the chat logs and see that these predators are truly sick. Like, you know, when we're talking to someone out of state, it's going to be a long time because we can't just say, hey, I want to go to Nebraska tomorrow. It typically takes a while. So in that time, they send some nasty shit. So they have no choice but to either arrest or investigate. So they're like, yeah, I mean, it's nasty stuff. And, you know, something needs to be done.
And Ghost, how did you come across Alex? And how often do the two organizations work together?
Yeah, so I came across him on YouTube as well. I didn't actually start on YouTube. I started on a different website, but I came across him on YouTube. I saw that he was doing the same thing that I was doing, but in Texas. And then I actually shot. It was either me or him. We shot each other a message back on Insta. We met on Insta. We started, texting on Instagram, and it's actually a funny story. The first conversation we had. But,
man.
We met on Instagram, and then, you know, ever since then we were like good friends. And then he flew out to Cali a few times to collaborate, and we actually collaborated in Arizona as well. And we collaborated in Arizona and Cali before, so pretty good.
And
work.
what kind of a revenue stream did this produce for you, Alex?
Well, the past few months it's been good, but other than that, you know, I'm 21. I'm living, you know, it's enough for me to pay my rent for sure, and to go fund my obviously extravagant diet. So I'd say it's good for that. But, you know, I'm not living it up. But is it a job?
This is what you do for a living, though, based upon historically what you've made from YouTube.
It's good enough to do that. And, you know, it's blessed me enough to be able to employ friends that I grew up with as the camera people. So it's good enough for that, but it's not good enough for me to not drive a 2010 Chevy Suburban that breaks down every 2 minutes. But, you know, it's another story.
So you're not getting rich, but you're paying your bills.
Correct.
And Ghost, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get a paycheck from this. I don't get, like, the only type of revenue we get is like from donations. Just this past couple of weeks, gas prices have really risen up in Cali. I actually went to Sacramento yesterday. I drove over 10 hours just to get someone, and he's actually got arrested last night. He was arrested by the police department in Sacramento. But like I said, we don't get a paycheck. We don't get any. If you think that we're making like really good money off of this, that's not true. We're just we're getting bare minimum donations from this. And that's only, and we can only travel like the across America just because off of those donations. Other than that, we wouldn't have been able to.
And how often do groups like yours, Alex and Ghost, collaborate between states, for instance, and what kind of legal issues does that cause? Does that raise?
I can't speak for any other groups. I'm like predator contented out right now. Like I don't really watch other channels like that anymore now that we do. So I don't really know what other collabs go on, but I know me and him have collabed 4 times in, between Cali and Arizona. And as for legal issues, we haven't really run into any legal issues. So, I don't know.
And one other thing, we've collabed a few times, and we have an arrest of a high school teacher in Los Angeles, and we got an ordained minister in Arizona also caught, which he's also under investigation by Yuma, Arizona, because that's where we got him, Yuma, Arizona. And like. Our collaborations are pretty good because the thing is, me and him, we have such a big reach across America because he's huge in Texas, I'm huge in Cali. So whenever we collaborate on a catch, the word spreads quick. It spreads all across. So and then it's bound for that individual to get recognized.
And so, how many people do you have actually working with you? Each group, Alex?
Oh, let me think. Well, let's see. There's people like that are like my friends that just help out from time to time, like either if I'm in their city or, you know, if we're just hanging out or whatever. Like all my friends are into it, which is cool. But how many people I'd say are like helping? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then me. So that's 7 of us. We're a pretty big group.
And Ghost, how many in your group, CC unit?
So I have like around the same thing, like 6. I have like security, and then like sometimes camera people come with me, and sometimes if I need editing or like like driving over there. So I have like around 6 people as well, 7 people.
And who does the chat work? Who does the online decoy work?
Who's going first?
Alex, go ahead.
Okay. So at first I did pretty much all of the chatting, and you know, the people that were with me at first, you know, they were just as new to it as I was, and they didn't really want to do any of the texting. I'm like, you're going to do the texting. So now we all do it, and then now at this point we have decoys that do a lot of it, but we all share multiple Instagram accounts. So, you know, these predators, they're pretty much living it up. They're talking to 6 people, which is, you know, great for them, but, you know, not in the end. But you know what I mean? Like we're all 6 of us share like an Instagram account that do the chatting. Or
what
7.
What made you target EDP445?
Well, the way I say it is we don't target anybody. He targeted us. We've heard these rumors about him that, you know, the chat logs were very real, but god dang, man. I've been a big fan of him since high school, man. Me and my friend Keyshawn always used to watch EDP. And, you know, I saw these rumors about him, and I knew about it last summer. And I was like, he's kind of pushing the line here, but it's a voice recording. He's acting weird, but he's not really getting too much into it. So it's like, Then there's more things happening. And, you know, we're like, screw it. We're just going to say we like your videos. That's what we said. So we hit him up on an account that said we're 13, like you said in the video. Hey, I like your videos. Big fan. And he's like, thanks. Keeping it real on these mofos. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's it. Then 2 days later, he messages us again. And we're like, no way. Then he sends a picture of his crap. And we're like, okay, this guy might just be weird.
His feces in the toilet.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he sent that to somebody he thought was 13 years old.
Yeah. Very shitty chat logs, I should say. But so there's that. It was like the weirdest like thing. I've never seen that from Predator before. But, you know, then he got sexual with us, and we're like, no fucking way. Because these girls that he would hit up, they were underage, but the chat logs didn't look as bad because they're not interested in him. Because in the end, he's a 400-pound man. He's ugly as crap. So, you know, they weren't interested. So that's why that's why it looked dry. But we pretend to be interested, like as a decoy would. That's when he really showed his true intentions. Like, yeah, I want to basically. He had one of the worst chat logs, wouldn't you say, CC? Freaking dungeon.
Yeah, when I read over the chat logs, I was like, wow, this guy is sick.
Give me a sense for the chat logs.
So his chat logs basically went from shitty, literally, to really shitty. Like, he talked about throwing her in a dungeon, sneaking into a window, taking her into his car and throwing her in the dungeon. Of course, that's, you know, obviously he doesn't have a dungeon, but the fact that he's fantasizing about that and projecting those fantasies onto who he thinks is a 13-year-old girl, it just shows how twisted he is. Like, that's basically a rape fantasy that he has with this 13-year-old girl. And he wanted to teach her how to have sex, which is very typical, probably. And he wanted to basically, you know, he sent videos of him wanking it, man. Like, he's, you know, yep, of course, he's horrible, man. He's just he's a piece of shit. Like, there was no stretch that we had to make to go get him. It was very like, okay, he's like one of the worst.
Yeah. And so you've got this very graphic, sexually inappropriate, probably illegal chat.
Yes, like,
and you decide to go confront him.
Yes, we've caught people for way less, for sure. Like, yeah.
And you're in Texas, so you got with Ghost at CC unit because he's in California, and that's where EDP445 is, and it was Ghost who actually did the confrontation. Or both of you?
Yeah, no, we both did it. We both did it. I had printed out a pair of chat logs for each of us, and we were basically, bad cop or whatever, just tearing into him. And he admitted everything. And to this day, he's still being investigated, as far as I know. And
who's investigating him?
Kern County Sheriff's Office. I'm not going to say the detective's name, but very recently we recorded phone calls of EDP. But since, the phone calls were recorded in Florida and he's in California, both those are two-party consent states. So the detective said now, like pretty recently, because at first he wasn't sure yet, but he pretty recently said now they're good to use because they're part of a criminal investigation. So the two-party consent thing goes out the window.
How did he react when you confronted him, and where did you confront him?
We confronted him at these apartments, Pine Ridge, I want to say. That's where the apartments are, in Bakersfield. And, so we were waiting at this Jack in the Box. Like, it was kind of like raised, and the apartments were like kind of like down ground level. And so there's a ramp going up to the apartments. So we're waiting for his car. We knew which car he drove already because we just looked it up. And we're waiting for this car to zoom in. But instead, we just see this this Michelin man looking dude walking around the corner, and he's going. Then we see him going up the steps. Well, they saw it. They're like, Alex, look, there he is. I'm like, where? I'm like, oh my God, that thing is huge. So then we, got down, and we thought we lost him for a second because he went up the ramp and we didn't see where he was. But luckily, that's where his 400 pounds came in and saved us, because then he got tired and he was just waiting like on the ramp. He was like, oh. And I ran up to him like, hey, what's up, EDP? And then he's like, fist bump? And I'm like, fist bump him. I'm like, so I was Sophie the whole time. And then from there, the rest is history.
You took some criticism, Alex, for not really confronting him in a professional way, setting out the accusations and merely making fun of him for being big, taunting him, as opposed to, having some sense of decorum and saying, look, what is the deal here? It appears that you were trying to solicit a 13-year-old girl for sex after a very graphic, horrifying conversation. Now, I'm not, obviously, in my position, going to defend anything this guy has done. It's horrible and creepy, and I get, why he needs to be exposed. And people have been coming to me for months about doing a story on this and exposing him.
Okay.
So I get all that. But is it right just to go up and prank this guy and make fun of him when the allegations are so very, very serious?
Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as,
it was like you were trying to embarrass him, and I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, really.
Yeah,
that's what he did is what he did, and that's horrifying. And
that's
I've spent
how we do things.
A good part of my career defending children, so I get
that.
But it didn't seem very professional to me.
That's fine. The way I look at it is, the confession is the most important part, and we went back and counted. He admitted he either knew she was 13 or his intentions 44 times. So if you look back at the footage, he admits stuff 44 times. So, if we make a few jokes, a few jabs here and there, that's just how I do things. So I don't look at it as unprofessional. I don't think that takes away from it. I just think it adds a certain element to it.
The question is, are you holding somebody accountable, or are you making a circus out of this to get clicks and money? And there's also talk that you withheld the video and the piece until you could figure out a way to maximize the monetization of it, as opposed to, get it out right away and say, look, this guy's dangerous. I'm just doing the right thing here. How do you answer that?
Of course. Like I said, as for, it is important, but the thing is, he did get exposed already because everybody was talking about the video before the video dropped. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we wouldn't want to make something back because, we're 21 years old. We're not sitting on piles of money. We flew to California. We drove through California, or at least he did, with, obviously California gas prices are pretty ridiculous. Like, traveling isn't free. Staying in hotels for multiple nights isn't free. And then putting in months and months of work. So of course we're going to try to, obviously get money out of this, because it isn't just doing this for the money, but of course, like, traveling to California just isn't free. And it's just disingenuous to just call us money hungry for wanting to make something from it. And we ended up dropping the video when it was demonetized. We did not get the video monetized when we dropped it. We waited till we got back to Houston to drop the video. Like, we didn't drop it in California. We spent one of those days editing it. So we were really sitting on the video for like 2 days maybe, and we typically drop videos weeks after because there's like an order that we post them. So there's videos that we did like in April that we still haven't posted yet because, you know, there's just a backlog of catches to post. So we moved EDP to the front of the line, and we exposed EDP or put him up before he put up a sex offender. Like we wanted to, you know, the sex offender came next, but you know, people said we withheld it. We rushed EDP. We rushed that thing. Like the night of, we made sure that was edited. We tried to upload it, but we couldn't because the Motel 6 Wi-Fi just wasn't good. Like we weren't holding on to it as long as the narrative said we were. We dropped that very quickly.
EDP445 has denied any wrongdoing. He claims that you created the transcripts, falsified them.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And he claims that you played with the editing of the video. How do you respond to that?
Well, he clearly must not watch our crap then, because he knows we have the most poorly edited videos ever. And yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I guess we did. I guess him saying I know it was wrong 44 times. I guess that was fake too, and we were actually just holding a gun to his head the whole time. Apparently, I guess, maybe, I don't know. So,
Ghost, what do you think you accomplished with Alex on this?
I think we definitely accomplished saving future victims from this guy. I mean, if you actually watch the video, you will hear him say that this is my 5th or 6th child that I've talked to online, and that's what he's admitting to. And you know that this guy's a liar. You know he's a liar. So if he's admitting that he's talked to 6 or 5 different children before, just double that number, triple that number, because we all know that's more, but he's just admitting to that because he wants to lessen the number. But yeah, like I said, we saved future victims from this guy because this guy's a celebrity, this guy's a popular YouTuber,
but he's never been criminally prosecuted. He hasn't been prosecuted yet in this case, although it sounds like he's under investigation, and we'll, you know.
Right, and that takes time. The detective told me on the phone there is good evidence on him, and along with the real females that he's talked to, hopefully that should support it. And you know, the detective said Kern County's district attorney is pretty harsh on this stuff. So, you know, I'm hoping that something happens. Of course, we don't know what the future holds, but I mean, it's all right there, all in front of us, you know. So.
EDP has been taken off of YouTube, demonetized, deplatformed. Yeah. And he's pretty much out of business. He was making a lot of money with millions of followers. Do you feel that was a victory for you?
I think censorship is just evil. However, he was using his platform to go commit crimes and solicit minors. So if you're using your platform to commit crimes, that's a whole different story. So I'm glad he's deplatformed, I guess.
And in the process, Alex, you got.
I did. They got me. I know.
So what was the cause of that? What did YouTube tell you?
In the email that YouTube sent me, because my Predator Poachers channel got deplatformed on April 9th. We caught him on the 17th, so a week before. And so the reason for Predator Poachers being taken down, it was on one strike, which is ridiculous, but it was for harassment and bullying, and like, damn. And then for Chet Goldstein, we had re-uploads, which I'm sure they took us down because the whole EDP situation and the whole little, Alex is a bad guy too. But, you know, the reason they gave me was that I had content uploaded from a terminated channel. So I had 5 of my catches reposted from Predator Poachers, which I didn't even know you can't do, but they took it down. That's the reason they gave me. You know? So
you had 2 channels. You had Predator Poachers and Chet Goldstein.
Correct. Chet Goldstein was the second channel. Yep.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And there were also issues with you using racially insensitive, offensive language on your channel. Did that play any part in this? And how do you justify that?
Not in YouTube's email to me. They didn't say it.
But you know what I'm talking about. There was some very racist, offensive language you used.
Yes. Those clips were from 2 years ago.
But still, it is what it is.
No, I know what it is, but they weren't on the channel. And so in YouTube's email, they didn't mention anything like that. But, you know, as for that, yeah, it's definitely a bad look to have when you're doing something professional.
Racist.
And I know that now.
There's no way
yeah,
around it.
I didn't need it in a
You can't
racist
defend
way
it.
at all. Like,
Well, you used the N-word.
I did.
Okay, so does that taint what could have been otherwise important work because you used harsh, racist, offensive language? And what were you thinking when you used that language?
I don't know what I was thinking 2 years ago. Me and my friend were screwing around, so I don't know what I was thinking 2 years ago. But no, I don't think that connects to.
You can't defend that language.
I don't have a comment on it. I've already addressed it in the video that I posted. So if you want to go, well, I didn't post it, but if you want to go watch that video, I already addressed it. I don't really want to talk about that. I'd rather just talk about catching predators and not something from when I was a teenager.
Do you consider yourself, Alex, a vigilante?
No, I don't say like I break the law to enforce the law, because I don't know the law that I break by doing this. I consider myself more of an activist, or I guess not really a journalist, more of an activist, because we do care about making a change. I do want to one day run for office, and this would be my platform. Like, say, hey, HPD has four online sex crimes detectives in a city of 2-point-something million, which is, the ratio is 1 per 500,000. And say, hey, instead of arresting people for having a plant in their pocket, why don't we put a lot of resources into catching child predators that actually cause victims? Because I don't believe there's no victim, no crime,
Here's the problem, and I want both of you to address this. Just days before this interview, I was at CrimeCon, which was in Austin, Texas this year, and I presented about journalism in the digital age and television and my latest projects. And in another presentation, I was with a commander from ICAG, the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And what they say, and these are the guys, these are the experts, these are the ones who know what they're doing, is that they don't like when guys like you do these investigations because it harms what they do. And it creates the impression that in many cases, guys you catch get away with it. They walk away without facing legal consequences. And it gives them a sense of impunity and lawlessness where they just go right back out and do it again. And I've talked to several law enforcement agencies across the country, ones I'm about to work with, the ones I have worked with, who just think that you are a bigger problem than a solution. How do you respond to that?
We're definitely not a bigger problem than solution. I don't know who dictates what's a problem and solution. Like, we're going to go
people
back
who are in law enforcement who've been trained, who put together these sting operations and do them and have a conviction rate close to 100%.
Correct.
And people who are professionals and who abide by the Constitution, and they get plea bargains and guilty verdicts and things that we see in our investigations. And this isn't, Chris's predator investigations are better than Alex's or CC units. This is law enforcement saying you guys are a bigger problem than a solution.
Well,
and that you're dangerous, reckless, and you're vigilantes.
When this guy,
when
this guy's been living in Sidney, Nebraska for 45 years, all 45 years he's been living in Sidney, Nebraska, and it takes somebody coming up from Houston driving 20 hours to go confront him and then bring that to law enforcement in order for him to stop preying on children. That's definitely not us being a problem. If we sit around for government to just come and save us, I'm not crapping on police. This doesn't get enough attention. This brings attention to it. So, the convictions or arrests that we do get, that's an added plus. But me and CC Unit do a great job of spreading awareness because now parents know about this. Parents know about it. It's going to take, in the end, we can't rely on government to save us. It's going to take people, private citizens, to come together, educate their children, have children be educated themselves, because the online predator issue ends when parents and children are, on the same page, working together, knowing that these dangers exist. And we do a great job of spreading that. So, and not all law enforcement disagrees with us. Some do, of course, some don't. But the fact is, we don't rely on government to go solve a problem. We go get it and we do it ourselves. And oftentimes, well, semi-often, I should say, they like what we're doing and they help us out. So I wouldn't say, and now, of course, if I had the opportunity to go put them all in handcuffs, I would, but we don't. So at the very least, we spread awareness. At the semi least, we get them fired from their jobs. At most, we have them convicted. So I wouldn't call it a problem at all.
Ghost, are you a vigilante?
No.
Why not?
I'm an actor. Yeah, like I said, like Alex said, I consider also myself like an activist. All we really do is we document, we film, and then we expose. We don't play hands on these guys unless it's for self-defense. Then yeah, but we don't arrest them. We don't put them under citizen's arrest, which we can do by law, but we don't even do that. So yeah, I consider myself an activist.
Recently, somebody who does something very similar was arrested himself in St. Louis for holding somebody against their will. Law enforcement sending a strong signal that this kind of vigilantism is dangerous and can potentially be irresponsible and backfire.
The thing is, a lot of these other people that do it, I agree with you. Some of these people do it for the wrong
You see what I'm
reasons.
saying, Ghost?
We do.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, nobody stands up against predators the way I have. I mean, I get it. I see your enthusiasm here.
Yeah, but Chris,
nobody's going to defend predators. It's your methodology and the other character issues that go along with it that people are raising as questions.
It depends on the catcher, honestly. Whoever the catcher is, they have to have good morals. They have to do it for the right reasons, and they have to be smart. If you're not smart when you're in this type of field, you're not going to survive. You're gonna get arrested. You're gonna get in some type of lawsuit. And the people like you said, the guy from St. Louis. I don't even know who you're referring to, but if he did hold the guy against his will, then that's on him. He's not very smart.
Yeah, and I've seen chats too where they're like, when basically the predators, the predator might as well just be like with the decoy at this point. They're like, oh, by the way, I'm underage, and that's bullshit. And when they don't even talk sexual and they go confront them anyway, that's kind of BS too. But the way we do it is, if you look at our chat logs, we're very, there's no disputing that we catch child predators. And you can say the same thing about cops. No matter what you think about the situation and with George Floyd, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, not every cop is like that. That'll just do that. So you can't judge one cop and say, oh, they're all pigs. Just like you can't judge, a retarded predator catcher and saying, oh, no, they're all just stupid. No, it's like we should be based off individuals. Like what CC Unit does, he's responsible for his actions. And same with him and me. I'm responsible for my actions. One retard in St. Louis does not mean that me and CC Unit suddenly don't catch
But people could say the same thing about you, Alex, who used racist language in past videos, and now suddenly you're all grown up and you have the character to go after predators after that. Does that taint the work you do?
If it taints it to you, then maybe. If it taints
I think it taints it to society. We all know that the language you used is inappropriate at best and offensive as well.
Okay,
I mean, it is what it is. Okay,
I'm not going to comment on it past this, but a clip of me saying something offensive does not dictate the chat, does not change the chat logs of the predators, does not change that we get people, we get cops to go arrest these people. Like,
but it becomes significant in that EDP is black. And did that have anything to do with you going after him?
No, we mostly catch white people. Not at all. We catch people that want to rape little kids. I don't care that EDP is black. And we didn't use any racial language to him. We had no intention of doing that. I don't care what color someone is. Me saying a word in a clip 2 years ago does not dictate who I am, and that's kind of a that's a far out thing to say. It has nothing to do with him being black. Like, in fact, what I notice is most child predators are white. So, yeah, I don't really come across many black child predators. We come across the reason why we caught EDP is because he wanted to go rape a kid, and that's it. There's no other reason. That's it.
EDP says that he was going to pursue defamation civil charges against you. Do you fear that at all?
No, I don't. Defamation means that someone has to be maliciously lying about you, and if he can name a single lie that I told about him, I'd love to. I'd love him to. I mean, I will be waiting.
What's next for you, Alex?
So right now we have our website going, and hopefully the content will be back on YouTube, but we are going to be posting on this public platform. coming up soon. And right now we have no intentions to stop. This is something we're passionate about doing. And we just got 8 catches on this trip to the Northwest. We had 3 people like that we were supposed to catch, but we just caught more like grinder people and all that. So, what's next for us is the next day. And, we're just going to keep moving forward no matter how many hits we take. So, yeah.
In the aftermath of this, Ghost, do you believe you'd have been better off had you done the confrontation on your own?
I mean, he's the one who brought it to me. So if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even been there. But
looking back on the video, Alex, do you wish you had taken a different tone with EDP? Again, nobody's defending what EDP is.
No,
it's sick, bad stuff, right? And I challenge you because that's how I do interviews. But
yeah, of course.
Do you wish you hadn't gone down that road the way you did with him and been more serious and perhaps had some more credibility about this whole thing?
I wish we got him to admit more times. 44 may not have been enough, maybe, I guess, but we got him to admit stuff 44 times. So I think, and the detective said himself, there's good evidence on him. And, most credit goes to, besides CC Unit driving us and helping with the confrontation, most credit goes to the decoys who got him to, who they had to see this nasty crap that he sent. And you know what? No, he needs to be nailed. And he's talked to multiple underage kids, and credit goes to one of them. I'm not going to say her name. I'm just going to call her D. Shout out to her for speaking out about the guy. So, it's a team effort to get his ass arrested. So, if he's in jail, then not much I can say about that. So let's hope that happens.
Gentlemen, anything else you want people to know tonight before we wrap up with your interview?
Well, thank you for having us on, Chris. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, thank you so
Ghost,
much, Mr.
any
Hansen.
final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Mr. Hansen. Hopefully one day we can collab. That would be great.
All right. Guys, thanks very much for being on. I appreciate it. Speak soon.
Yeah, appreciate you too, man.
Take care. Daniel Warner is a lawyer from Scottsdale, Arizona, who specializes in defamation cases, social media, and the internet. Daniel, thanks for being on the show tonight and having a seat with me. How are you?
Good. How are you, Chris? Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. You've dug into this EDP445 case a little bit for us to give us your legal impressions. Essentially, we have a case here where this guy was a very controversial content creator on YouTube. He made a lot of money, millions of followers, was on other social media platforms as well. And there was a rumor about that he was having inappropriate contact with kids underage, girls underage. And there was some other potentially inappropriate content. So 2 vigilantes, Matt Goldstein and a fellow who goes by CC Unit, set up a vigilante sting. And they set up a profile with a 13-year-old girl. EDP445 shows up. They confront him. And it would appear, even though we always worry about these vigilante stings, that there's something there, that he did something inappropriate. By he, I mean EDP445. But there are no criminal charges filed, and I would venture to predict that there won't be because this was a vigilante case and they're very hard prosecutions to make. Given all that, and if EDP445 is never prosecuted, does he have a case against the vigilantes for some sort of defamation?
Based on your synopsis, Chris, and the facts as I understand them, I would be inclined to say probably not. With the qualification that, anybody can file a defamation lawsuit for any reason, and sometimes it will go longer than other cases, even if it's absolutely frivolous. But just technically speaking, it doesn't sound like it. I mean, truth or substantial truth is an affirmative defense when it comes to defamation. That's pretty much black letter law in every state. And that sounds like what we have here. Obviously, depending on how people are portraying the situation and everything else, it's very factually intensive and there's a lot of factual nuances. And one little fact can change the whole analysis. But generally speaking, I don't believe that he would have a case.
These transcripts that Chet Goldstein and CC Unit have are pretty blatant. I suppose there's some outside chance that they were doctored in some way, and because they're not obtained by law enforcement or somebody who's deputized by law enforcement, I guess that raises some questions. But if he filed a lawsuit, EDP445, wouldn't that open him up to discovery and more issues, and perhaps even expose him to some criminal prosecution, because prosecutors could get some information that's on the record? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is putting those issues at play. And typically in a defamation lawsuit, the affirmative truth is an affirmative defense. But because it's an affirmative defense, the defendant has a chance to serve discovery regarding that defense and all of the issues related to that defense. So
would those transcripts, do you think, Daniel, I'm sorry to cut you off, would those transcripts be admissible?
In the defamation case, they likely would be, depending. I mean, I could think of a couple ways you could get those into evidence. Also, I mean, he's pretty much claiming that they were fake or they're forgeries, so
right.
He's actually putting those at issue and their authenticity as well.
And so would it be up to him to prove they were fake, or would it be up to the defense in this case to prove that in fact they were authentic?
That's a great question, Chris. And I think it depends on how these issues are raised and actually what state as well. For example, in my home state, Arizona, something that's per se defamatory is presumed as a matter of law to be false and malicious.
Got it.
Now, there are exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that's the presumption. In some other states, you don't get that presumption. So that could have something to do with it. And also just generally how this issue is raised. It sounds like he would be raising it to demonstrate that the statements are in fact false. And because we have a matter of public concern, there's a good chance that he would have to demonstrate falsity.
Now, both sides in this have been taken off of YouTube. And while I'm an ardent defender of the First Amendment, I can understand why they would make that decision in these cases, because, you know, there was some very crass, inappropriate content. And in the case of Chet Goldstein, there were some racially insensitive, offensive remarks made in his content on his YouTube channel. What kind of a thorny issue is this for YouTube? And I've gone back and forth with them for years now, and finally one of the targets of our stories was demonetized but not deplatformed. How difficult is it for a platform like YouTube to make a decision without criminal charges to deplatform somebody, to take away somebody's livelihood?
I think based on what we've seen throughout this recent election, it can be pretty easy for them to essentially do what they want, and they have a substantial amount of discretion under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, as well as their terms and conditions. So they essentially have carte blanche to do whatever they want.
So you wouldn't think that EDP then has any sort of legal recourse in terms of getting his channel back or anything like that? YouTube owns that real estate, essentially.
Essentially, they can do whatever they want. Even if it comes out that he was innocent by some, chance, they could still do whatever they want.
It's their playground.
Correct.
You've been involved in defamation cases, social media, internet cases. You ever see anything quite like this? And given the nature of the internet, does anything surprise you?
The longer I do this, the less that surprises me. I've seen some crazy, crazy things, and this is something that is a new one. I will say that. But I guess I'm not surprised. I mean, absolutely not. It's just a horse of another color at this point.
And then we have the added issue of law enforcement frowning upon vigilantes doing this kind of work online. In fact, there was a fellow prosecuted just within the last 2 weeks in St. Louis for detaining somebody who was an alleged predator who surfaced in this vigilante sting. And they're prosecuting him now, but not the vigilante. I would think legally this vigilante activity is risky at best.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, you never know how people are going to react. And if you don't have law enforcement with you, and you know probably better than 99.9% of the people how that should work and how that does work, and it works well when you have law enforcement with you. Taking that risk is probably not going to help anyone in the long run. I mean,
let me ask you this, Daniel, because I think it's interesting. If you are a content creator, a drama channel, and I don't consider myself a drama channel, although some of the topics we cover here on Have a Seat with Chris Hansen are certainly dramatic and compelling. But if you are a drama channel and part of what you do is take on controversial topics, that's what you do. How do you make sure you don't cross the line and defame somebody, thus exposing yourself to a defamation lawsuit?
I think it's important to just keep the facts as the facts. Oftentimes in the cases, that I deal with, people add kind of their own element to things, and that's where they get in trouble. They want to embellish certain facts. They want to take stuff out of context rather than just keeping the facts plain and simple as they are. And sometimes what the facts are is actually in debate and can be an issue. So it's important to know the facts. It's important to be able to substantiate the facts. And if you're not sure exactly what the facts are, that you convey that and say, from my understanding based on XYZ, here are the facts. If you do that, you're more likely to keep yourself out of trouble, in my experience.
To me, as a storyteller, a reporter, if you just report it the way it is and avoid using, language that locks something in. In other words, if you're sharing your observations and being transparent about your methodology, you're pretty safe. It's when you step over that line and use language that just isn't exactly descriptive of what happened by trying to embellish. That's when it seems like people get into trouble.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I also doing a case now where there's an issue with an alleged journalist, and it was a one-sided report, and it was one of those cases where he kind of intentionally omitted a lot of the information that didn't really suit his narrative, and that's something that I am dealing with now.
Would this be considered a citizen journalist?
I believe it would, yes. It's not a professional journalist.
Which raises a lot of issues, and I'm not trying to goalkeep here or say that only guys who've been reporters for X number of years can do this sort of work, because I think there was a very important role for citizen journalists in the digital era. But it raises a lot of questions because, the standards in terms of service and rules of the road that I've always abided by, that I've always been taught and had to sign, documents on, are pretty straightforward. And I've lived by those rules for 40 years. But somebody who just decides one day to have a YouTube channel and put his reporter hat on, those people aren't as sensitive to the fairness doctrine and other very important elements of what we do as journalists.
Absolutely. And you know, professionals are professionals for a reason. And that's often what we see is a lack of objectivity and essentially an agenda and a narrative that they want to create and portray.
What dangers do you see, or what culpability do you see in a situation where, for instance, somebody puts together a report, whether print or video, and in that report there is balance, there is fact-based reporting, but then in an attempt to promote that piece of work, that person goes on Twitter and says something that is just absolutely untrue? Is there liability there?
That's a good question. And
I mean, you see that a lot these days because people are teasing stuff. And look, I use social media all the time to tease stories. My podcast, this show, television shows that I've got going on Discovery Plus. So I use it too. But if you omit something knowingly in an effort to cast somebody in a certain light or use somebody's name to promote your product, is there liability there?
The other very well could be. And that's where I think there's a big risk there, because everybody wants to obviously have the catchy headline because that's what's going to bring in the views, so they could actually get the meat and potatoes of the story. But yeah, that's absolutely one of the risks. So, you know, in that circumstance, I would maybe have a link to the story, so there's a full. Everything that should be said is there. And there is some case law on headlines and such, but the question becomes, is a tweet a headline?
Right. But what if the tweet says something that is knowingly false and it causes harm? Is there liability there to somebody's reputation or somebody's commerce?
Yeah, that's likely to be problematic, in my opinion, and generally speaking, of course, but I think that's more likely to be problematic.
So someone who knowingly puts out a tweet that is false in an effort to promote a story that may be more balanced could be held liable in a defamation case.
I certainly think it's possible. I mean, that meets the malice standard with knowingly publishing something that's false or recklessly disregarding the truth. And if all the elements are there, then yeah, absolutely.
Are there a couple of rules that, as a lawyer who deals with defamation cases, especially having to do with social media and the internet, are there a couple of things that you can say in a cautionary, helpful way to content creators who may be watching this?
I would just say stick with the facts as you know them. And if you're not sure, then say you're not sure. Don't try to make an affirmative statement when you're not 110% sure that that statement is true.
All right.
That's really the most important principle, I think.
Daniel Warner from Scottsdale, Arizona, thank you very much for being with us and sharing your insights into this, and we'll stay in touch and love to have you on again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
You know, the question begs, Wes, without people exposing guys like EDP445, does YouTube ever take action here, or is this just allowed to continue?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, for what I've seen, it's allowed to continue until it gets so loud, like with the Austin Jones situation, that they just can't ignore it. And the video that CC Unit and Predator Poachers had made, it already had 2 million views in just a matter of days. You know, the major press was starting to pick up on these things, so they couldn't just let it sit there. So that's why they took such a quick action. But otherwise, yeah, I think it continues. He's making money for them, and everyone's happy.
Well, the same thing is true with Onision, who, you know, they allowed to,
engage in sexual harassment and bullying and all kinds of other violations of the YouTube terms of service until we literally, in the series that's out on Discovery Plus right now, Onision in Real Life, intercut Onision videos with the terms of service, good touch, bad touch video. It wasn't until then that YouTube took action against Onision and demonetized his platform.
Well, it's important to remember that, these are all, even if we're not paying to use a Google search or paying to use YouTube, it is a business. And just, it's Pride. When you're talking about Pride Month, how many companies are running promotions talking about Pride, but they're also on the back end donating to politicians who want to, make it illegal make gay marriage illegal or trans rights. And they want to do away with these things, but they'll gladly advertise that they're big on Pride. So these are businesses, and you people, the most noise that you can make, just like when you're boycotting a bus, is with your pocketbook. So if you're saying, hey, I'm not going to support this and I'm not going to use YouTube at all until this person's taken off, that's the only way they're going to listen. And that story getting out there as big as it did was really bad news for YouTube. So they stepped up really quickly. And that's also why Alex was terminated at the same time.
Right. So he gets terminated because of his involvement here. And also one can presume because of the racially insensitive, offensive remarks that he has made historically.
I'm sure I could go on YouTube and in 20 seconds find videos just as bad, if not worse, that have been there for years. But it's the collateral damage that, because these videos existed and he was in the realm of this other story that was also just ballooning into something much bigger, he also needed to be taken down along with EDP.
The question begs, Wes, if he was caught, EDP445, doing this with Predator Poachers by Alex and Ghost of CC Unit, how many other times has he done it when it hasn't been a vigilante sting and potentially has gotten away with it?
Well, and it's a really good question. I mean, he admits to being caught during that confrontation with Alex and Ghost. He admits to being caught at least 6 times. And I don't think anyone strikes out 6 for 6 and keeps going. So there have to have been some successes, I would imagine, or you wouldn't continue. That would just be incredibly bad luck. But the way that, from being a fan of To Catch a Predator and watching that show, you see when they walk in almost bold. He didn't seem to have any apprehension walking up to that apartment.
There was a sense of impunity almost that he had this coming to him.
Well, yeah, it didn't seem at all like a first time thing or something foreign to him going to visit, this 13-year-old that he thought, and not for the cupcake, like he said. I mean, he admitted what he was there for during the confrontation, only to afterwards change his whole story. And now it's a setup and everything else. I also saw that with the TCAT Predators. They would admit to everything while they were there. Then as soon as the lights were off on the camera and they realized what they had admitted to and what had happened, they wanted to change their stories.
Exactly. And we should say that EDP445, Bryant Moreland, has denied actually trying to have sex with the underage girl. He claims he was set up. He claims the transcripts provided by Predator Poachers and CC Unit were somehow doctored or falsified. We offered, as you may know by now, EDP445 a chance to be interviewed as part of this story. Take us through that, Wes. You're the one who actually had contact with his people.
Well, yeah. So we kind of went back and forth over the course of a few weeks, and at first it was a tentative agreement, and then it went to he was turning it down, and then we had another tentative agreement, but then it was followed up with, well, are you willing to pay? And I mean, I don't pay for interviews. I know that that's not something you do. So, but I wanted to know what amount that they're looking for, because it's very strange to me, me personally, that someone who wanted to proclaim their innocence would want money to do that. And so I asked what amount they were looking for, and $17,000.
Where does he come up with a number like $17,000, and what is it based on? Not that we would pay 17 cents, but who does that? It's like what Onision said. He wanted $375,000 or $350,000, whatever it was, to appear on the show when we started reporting on him. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Well, and it's just different because, you know, when you're talking about Onision, he felt like he was on the defensive. EDP's claiming that he's 100% innocent, and he wants to explain his innocence. So why such a huge sum, $17,000 to go somewhere that's willing to give you a platform? Because he's been deplatformed everywhere. Go somewhere where they're willing to let you talk and explain your side. You said you have evidence proving that you're innocent. Why would you be afraid to share that?
Does he come back and come anywhere close to the 2 million subscribers he had on any platform? I mean, I just can't imagine why anybody would watch this guy anyway, but apparently, you know, he's got some
no, I don't,
out there.
I don't think he can come back because, you know, like I said, it's a business, and who's gonna want to support him as a sponsor? Who's going to be comfortable with that? Because as soon as someone's ad runs on one of his videos and someone complains that I saw your ad run before the video of this person who is on video showing up to meet a 13-year-old, then that person threatens to pull their money from Google entirely. If that's so, no one's going to be willing to sponsor him. No one's going to be willing to. And then who's going to be? He has a website now, or he's talking about a website. It still hasn't launched, weeks late, and he's charging. It's going to be a membership website, and he's talking about doing meet and greets with people.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I can't think of for his own safety, a worse thing to try and offer than meet and greets where people are going to be coming up to him hypothetically and I don't know, shaking his hand, or I don't know what he expects, but it's a desperate move, obviously, when he has nothing else. So he's going to try and do this paid membership site because he knows that no one's going to support him as a sponsor.
Does anything surprise you about YouTube anymore?
No.
All right. Wes Moast, as always, thank you for the collaboration. Thank you for your diligent, intelligent, and very creative work. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris.
We will, Wes and I, continue to monitor the EDP445 situation, the case. We are told that law enforcement and prosecutors potentially are interested in picking this up, and we will stay in touch on that front. We thank you once again for having a seat here with me. A reminder that the 4th episode in our series Onision in Real Life has dropped and is now out. Sarah Speaks on Discovery Plus. Our continued coverage of the Peter Nygaard investigation, Unseemly, is also out on Discovery Plus. My podcast, Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other podcast platform. So check all that out. We're going to have some more Predator investigations coming up on TV and right here on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. If we don't see you beforehand, have a wonderful Father's Day, all you dads out there, and we will have a seat with you very soon. Remember, I'll be watching.